Okay, my wife just gave me the thumbs up. That means she can see me on her phone. And that means I'm buying time for the next 20 seconds so that everybody can settle in and I can start exactly on time. While everybody's getting here, and actually there's a point to this, I'm a sucker for infomercials. I'm talking about like from a little kid. There used to be one in Japan, the hand can be used like a knife, but this method doesn't work with a tomato, or a diamond is the world's hardest substance, but 2 years later, you still can't cook on it. For some reason, infomercials draw me in because I'm like, I didn't know I needed this, but I do. And there's so much enthusiasm and passion, and I kind of get caught up in it. Well, there's this one on, and I saw it. I'm like, I got to talk about on this. I got to talk about this on my session. It's a guy named Stephen Ridley, and you'll pardon me. I have to imitate this guy. So it starts out. It's on YouTube. So it's like if you don't hit skip, which, again, to be honest, I went to hit skip, and I couldn't. This guy was just too dynamic. He's playing the piano, and he goes something like this. He goes, with these 4 chords, you can play every song ever made. And can you feel the love tonight? When I find myself in times of trouble, same 4 chords. And then he's like, on a warm summer's evening, just gonna stand there and watch me burn. Same 4 chords. I bless the rains down in Africa. Why you gotta go and make things so complicated? Same 4 chords. Well, I'm sorry. I'm probably making fun of the guy, but just it cracks me up. So anyway, if you haven't seen it, make sure not to hit skip ad. And I tell my son all the time, YouTube used to be free, pass it on, because no one's going to remember. If you happen to see this ad, it's a hoot. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I want to explain how that method is what is to piano what truth-empowered relationships for me is to being verbally intimate, minus the cheesiness, I promise. So we'll get into it. Welcome back. This is session 3 of Truth-Empowered Relationships, and I'm Marshall Zweig. My method was behind a subscription wall for a year, and now I get to give it away to you. And that's what I prefer, because I want truth-empowered relationships, like I've said for this past year, to be a movement, to be a way for the world to be filled with more authentically loving relationships. So how are my method and that piano thing I just did, how are they the same? I'll tell you. Patterns. The piano is 8 sets of repeating keys. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 8 sets. There's black keys in between. And there's a handful of sets of chords. There's major chords, there's minor chords, there's diminished chords, there's augmented chords. You break the piano down into those patterns, and you learn those patterns, and you can truly play every song ever made. Just like that guy says. As wacky as he sounds, you can do it. So there's a pattern to having a human experience. Feelings, thoughts, perspectives, beliefs. If you understand them all, if you become aware of them all, if you learn to express them all with honesty, with sensitivity, with respect, then we can speak a common language. And when we speak a common language, that means I'm always going to understand you, you're always going to understand me. That's success in a relationship. And that's what we're in the middle of. I say in the beginning of, but in the middle of. I'm going to give you some cool shortcuts. Like I said, if you've seen anything about truth-empowered relationships, it's an extreme game. And so I don't want to have you wait too long to play it. So this session, I'm going to give you, let's call it a low-hanging fruit, a beginning assignment in telling the truth and in listening to the truth, a beginning assignment. Next session, I'm going to give you, because I want you to build this muscle up in the time between this section and next. Next session, I'm going to give you a truth exercise that you can use over and over again to recreate closeness in your relationship. I believe it's going to blow your mind. And that's part of the goal of my method and of evolution as a couple and evolution as human beings, blowing your mind, or said differently, losing your mind and coming to your senses. Well, that takes telling the truth. So that's what we're learning to practice. That's the muscle we're developing. Hi. Somebody said hi in chat. Last time I talked about being desensitized. For some people, desensitization is easy to spot because they had clearly insensitive people in their lives, clearly insensitive data put toward them. But for many people, the desensitization is wrapped up in, cloaked in, disguised in this well-meaningness of people who say they love us and believe they love us and believe they're doing us a service to take the pain away, to lessen the pain. Desensitization stems from a human being's innate desire to avoid pain. So for me, the way to alter that equation, and we can talk about why I'm altering it. Ask any questions you want in chat. I'm keeping my eye on chat. The way to alter the equation is to get out of the paradigm of our emotions and our experiences being good or bad. More challenging to experience? No doubt. Some are more challenging to experience. Not for some people, for everybody. But part of resensitizing is realizing that pain exists. Pain exists, and embracing that truth. So why does any of this matter in a truth-empowered relationship? Because when you're resensitized, when you learn to express that resensitized self, you're speaking the common language of intimacy that we can all share, that we can all relate to, that we can all understand. Oh, that's a human being having a human experience over there. Now we get understanding, we get understood. That's how a relationship works. So let me talk about this paradigm of good and bad. What do I mean by a paradigm of good or bad? Well, you saw the title of this session. The simple idea of the question, how are you? How are you? Think about all the times that somebody has asked you, how are you? How are you? Or you've asked somebody else, hey, how are you? It's an evaluation question. It's an it's asking you to rank your experience, to compare it to other experiences. It's putting your experience in a mental construct versus an emotional one. So when you're asked to evaluate something, your answer will invariably be some version of good or some version of bad. So your emotional experience, your reality, is now instantly categorizable. These are good. These are bad. And we live in the paradigm of good or bad. As simple as that, as quick as that. It starts with a simple, innocent, well-meaning, how are you? And it ends in unwitting, unconscious desensitization, slowly but surely. These are bad. These are good. I should avoid these. I should go toward these. To the degree that you stay in the paradigm of good and bad is to the degree that you desensitize yourself. Let me say it again. And like I say in every session, don't just believe what I'm saying. Try it on. Listen to your reactions as I talk. To the degree you stay in the paradigm of good and bad is to the degree that you desensitize yourself. Bad feelings, I don't want to feel them. I need to avoid them. I've eliminated red, yellow, and green from my rainbow, so now I have to pretend it's a rainbow, but it's missing colors. I have to act like I'm not missing colors because everybody else is acting like they aren't missing colors. Look at my rainbow. Look how full it is. Look how rich in color. Everybody see my rainbow on Facebook and my rainbow on Instagram? My smile. Look how wide it is, how beaming it is. Look at my family. Look how happy they are. That's the voice of desensitization. We all have a voice inside our heads. Often when I say this to people who aren't aware of the voice, they will think to themselves something like, voice in my head? What's this guy talking about? I don't have a voice in my head. That's the voice I'm talking about. That voice. Often it's multiple voices, depending on the situation, and really depending on the emotions we're presented with. So that voice might be saying, don't feel that feeling. I'll show you. And this is any time I'm talking through times in our life that voice might have shown. I'll show you. I'll never feel that feeling again. I've risen above those feelings. I'll just pretend those feelings don't exist. Go about my day. What? Oh, well, it's not a politically correct movie anymore, but there's a famous movie quote. I'll think about that tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. The thing is, feelings exist. They exist. They exist now. They may yet exist tomorrow, and if we keep pushing them off, they'll exist the next day and the next day. But they exist right here, right now. I'm feeling them right now, and I'm going to get into that in a little while. So we have to feel them. If they exist, we have to feel them. Labeling them good or bad just makes us more unconsciously resist our feelings. It's not supportive of our well-being to resist things. The brakes wear out. And as you can see, I now have gray. It may be white, but I can't face that reality. I'm a work in progress too. But there's gray in my beard. It used to be I could put the brakes on, and I did. The brakes wear out physically, and they wear out mentally. Physically with dis-ease, mentally with mental health issues. So let's say it differently, in a way we can all relate to, but in a way that demonstrates our aspiration, what we want to be, which is open. So let's call it this, some emotions, some experiences are more difficult to stay open to. Some emotions and experiences are more difficult to stay open to. That's what I'm working on, and that's what I propose we all be working on. I'm going to make it as fun as I can. As I mentioned, I'm a person who experienced sexual trauma, psychological trauma, and I can tell you, as that person, some feelings, and I'll share this more as we go on, are more difficult to stay open to. They are. And you don't have to have experienced what I've experienced to know that truth. You could have had a life where you don't perceive having had major traumas, but I bet you can tell me some feelings are more easy to stay open to than others. And that's the truth. Well, we're here to tell the truth. So that's not saying they're good, and it's not saying they're bad. It's saying some feelings are essentially more triggering to the nervous system. But all feelings are there, whether we want them to be there, whether we don't want them to be there, they're there. They're present. So from my perspective, the wisest thing you can do is get comfortable with all your emotions so that they don't trigger your nervous system in a debilitating way. This is exactly what people work on when they become enlightened. You feel your feelings, but alarms don't go off when you get comfortable with all your emotions. When you understand that they're coming in and they're going out, and they're coming in and they're going out, all of them. And that means getting comfortable with letting go of feelings too. Not clinging to happiness. And it also means, in a very basic way, I love this phrase, it means getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. I think I said that earlier. It means you start listening to what the emotions are telling you, whatever it is, because often they have important messages for you about the truth of who you are. These emotions that you're avoiding and suppressing and resisting. By the way, I'm talking to myself when I say these things too. I'll share more about that, like I said, when we get to the practice makes progress exercises. Once you are more open to feelings, thoughts change, which we're going to talk about in terms of feelings versus thoughts. The thoughts change or they disappear. And there's no need for mindfulness. There's no need for breathing techniques. They have their place in regulating the nervous system. In regulating the nervous system is a supportive habit. It's a supportive muscle to create, supportive of well-being. But they're not healing. They're just doing something helpful for yourself in the moment. Mindfulness and breathing are like pulling a weed up by whatever's sticking up over the grass. So outside of the fact that the weed has been pulled, the root is still there. Outside of the fact that you're building an important habit, the roots are still there. The cause for the nervous system dysregulation is still there. You get comfortable with your emotions, everything flows. I won't get into it, but I coach content moderators, people who pull illegal stuff off the internet. They are deliberately disabling their mechanism, their fight or flight. It's actually called the acute stress response. I think we talked about that. The fight or flight mechanism. It's putting their nervous system into a state of dysregulation. So they can do all the mindfulness techniques they want, but they'll have to do it day in, day out, because the weeds are coming back, because you have to watch them for 8 hours a day and report on them. So I talked about this, I think, the last session, The idea is that the Buddha is smiling because the Buddha is experiencing everything. Not some things and not others. Everything. And he's okay with it. This is the experience of life in human form. And yes, I'm comparing you, potentially, to the Buddha. What I'm sharing with you is enlightenment. In addition to being relationship success formulas, it's enlightenment made simple. So not only will you get more intimate relationships, you're going to become more enlightened. The more we practice fully feeling without judgment, we're not judging the feelings, and without attachment, we're not hanging on to them, with neutrality, with the curiosity, oh, this is interesting, it's interesting. The more we evolve as human beings, the more we experience internal freedom, evolution, enlightenment, more intimacy. That's the potential of these set of workshops that I'm giving you. All it takes is embracing the truth of this physical plane in human form. Emotions exist. All emotions. The ones that are less challenging to feel, the ones that are more challenging to feel, the ones that are more challenging to stay open to, and the ones that are less challenging to stay open to. They all exist. And by definition, if something exists, you're not meant to avoid it or suppress it or resist it. You're meant to experience it. That's the wisdom of existence as human beings. The pain doesn't go away, and you're not supposed to try to make it go away. You open to the pain. It's counterintuitive, because we've all been taught different things in our lives by well-meaning people. You open and you experience your emotions, and it can heal you in many different ways. Spiritually, medically, physically. You take the tension out of the nervous system. You change the antenna. You get a different signal coming into you. A different signal could be a different version of you. Truly. But that's only when you get out of the idea of chasing only positive emotions. What you can expect to experience when you're open to feeling uncomfortable emotions is you automatically get the emotions we all find easier to experience. The goosebumps, the chills of coincidence and magic that run down your spine, the warm feeling of contentment, satisfaction, you're snuggled under a nice warm blanket on a cold day, the pure delight of being alive. My favorite example of that is laying in the grass when I was 8 and looking up at the clouds and thinking to myself, I've got so much time. So when you open up to that full rainbow of emotions, you don't need to be positive. And that part's really, really important. Forced positivity can destroy a person. I'm living proof. The positivity takes care of itself if you open up to the rainbow of emotions. I'm glancing at the clock. My wife wants me to try to take this as close to 20 as I can because she feels like too much more is burdening. I got a bit more, so if you'll hang with me, I'm going to get to the finish up here and get to the exercise. So, truth-empowered relationships, in its simplest form, is learning to speak the common language of human beings having human experiences. That's what we all are. To speak that language, to understand that language, we needed to tune in the truth. My wife just wrote, "Go, baby, go," in chat. That's sweet. We need to tune into the truth of who we are. And it's not good, and it's not bad. Who we are just is. The truth is the truth. And that's what we're going to learn to be masters of in truth-empowered relationships. We're going to master noticing what it's like to have a human experience. And we're going to put that noticing into words and share that with each other and listen with that understanding. And that mastery will not only transform your relationships, it's going to transform your experience of life here on planet Earth. So, please feel free to put this in chat. And if you're driving, please don't chat. I promised my wife I wouldn't do that, and I do my very, very best to keep the promise. It's distracted driving can kill, for sure. So, just contemplate silently for a second what brought you to these sessions. Now, maybe you knew me, maybe you thought highly of me, maybe you thought you were doing me a favor to contribute, which I appreciate. But if you were coming of your own accord, what brought you? Because I appreciate your trust and willingness to be here, but I know you want to get something out of being here. and I want to give it to you. So was it something about your relationship? Was it something about your lack of relationship? Something about you, the way you show up in a relationship? Or something about the way someone else shows up in the relationship? I'll stay quiet for a second. Just muse about that. What do you want to get out of here? Or what brought you here? Now here's my next contemplation. What emotions do you experience? What emotions do you experience about not having what you want? I would assume you would have emotions about it, not having what you want. What emotions do you currently or have you in the past experienced about not having what you want? I'll stay quiet for a second about that one too. Then I got 2 more questions for you. Third contemplation. What emotions do you avoid, suppress, resist, or deny? Avoid, suppress, resist, or deny. And if you're not sure, just focus on the fact that you don't know. Not expecting to know what you don't know. Again, what emotions do you avoid, suppress, resist, or deny? If it's supportive of you, you can play. I'll have a 4K version of this tomorrow. You can play it back and pause here if you need to. Here's the 4th one. What is it that makes you avoid, suppress, resist, or deny these emotions? Okay, in chat I have impatience, restlessness, sadness, depression, hopelessness, nervousness. So the 4th one, what makes you avoid, suppress, resist, or deny these emotions? And like I said, you might not experience the world in terms of feeling at all. And if that's you, I got you, fam. I understand and empathize with that reality too. There was a time in my life where if I were in your place listening to someone talk about resensitizing, like I'm talking about resensitizing, I wouldn't have been able to hear him. I would have been hearing the judge in my head. Now I'll tell you about things that go on for me now. This type of thing isn't me anymore because I've changed the antenna. I've allowed things to move through me. Finding fault with the speaker, though, is what I probably would have been doing. What they were saying that I disagreed with, or I can do a better job, potentially. I would go to plays and I would think, I should be up there. I could do better than that guy. I would have been ridiculing the whole premise of last session because, like I said, in my first introduction to personal growth when I showed up in 1999, I didn't need help feeling. I believed I felt too much. But it wasn't accurate. What was accurate was I was feeling my avoidance, suppression, resistance, and most of all, denial. My blocking out of my pain. I was feeling my brakes. The brakes hurt. They hurt much worse, in my opinion. I don't mean to compare, but I am comparing, than the actual experience of what I could call pain. I'm going to get into the scientific version of this too. Other people's insensitivity toward me has confused me into being insensitive toward myself. So I started to believe I should be able to stop my feelings, to control them, to choose what I want to feel. Choose what I want to feel, which I know personal growth seminars still teach you that. Taught me that. To me, that's a dangerous way of being. Putting will into your emotional experience. Feelings come first. I said science. Listen to this, because science does tell us that. Neurological research tells us that. The sensory input always goes through the emotional centers of the brain before it reaches the frontal cortex, the place for our rational thought. Let me say it again. The sensory input always goes through the emotional centers of the brain before it reaches the place for rational thought, the frontal cortex. So really contemplate what that means. It means it is actually physically impossible for thought to come before emotions. The physical and physiological and psychological reality is that feelings choose you, not the other way around. So what I felt wasn't my feelings, it was my determination to not feel my feelings. And my point is, if talking about resensitizing is challenging for you, I promise you I get it. I promise you I get it. And I ask for your trust. We're going to call this an experiment. You consider what I have to offer, and I'm going to give you my method session by session. My goal is to allow you to have conversations with your partner back and forth in a structured manner and not just feel safe about it. Not just feel safe, feel enriched by it, by both the sharing part and the listening part you'll play, even during challenging conversations. Last week, I asked you to think about the times in your life where you got desensitized. And because I want to be mindful of the time, I'd love to hear what you saw for yourself if you ever want to message me privately. But if you look back at that page, and I ask you, what's the result of getting desensitized? Just read something in chat, sorry. What would you say it is? What would you say is the result of these moments of desensitization that I had you write down? Because I say it's that we feel less and think more, like I was talking about. When the tension builds up, now the emotions can't flow through. Energy and motion, they can't flow. We're tense. We stop the flow. We stop the flow of the nervous system. And we move from feeling to thinking. We all know what it's like to have our emotions not matter in the way we need them to matter, not be understood, not be validated like we need. And when emotions don't get validated like we need, don't get understood, don't matter, they turn into thoughts. Thoughts come second. So we all understand the language of thoughts too, emotions and thoughts. The voices in our heads, or the voice in our heads. I'll keep it singular just to make it easy. That we're going to learn how to become aware of those voices, that voice, I said singular, and share that in our relationships too, in a way that demonstrates sensitivity, respect, and clarity. We're going to talk about the common language of thoughts using something I was training called positive intelligence. We'll get to that in a future session. And I'm going to give you these tools so that you can put your inner world into words. I said we're all having experiences. I'm having an experience in here right now. Right now, I'm staring at the clock, and I'm 27 minutes in, and I know what my wife said. And so there's agony in me of I have two different things I feel like I should be doing. Ending, but wanting to make sure I give you the exercise and give you value. And I'm in a state of tension inside. That's my current reality. That's happening as I'm sitting here right now talking to you. There's a rich world alive in me right now, and there's one in you too. And the idea is to share what's alive. One more scientific study, I'll give you the exercise. There was a study in a magazine called Psychological Science. Okay, the participants were hooked up to an MRI, and they were shown pictures of angry, scared, or happy-looking faces. And half the times, the participants had to match the target face up to another picture with a face of a similar expression. Okay, the other half the time, they had to match the face to a word that correctly labeled the face's emotion. And here's what the researchers found: when the participants labeled the face's emotions using words, they showed less activity in the amygdala, in the area of the brain associated with emotional distress. At the same time, they showed more activity in the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. The right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. That's an area of the brain associated with verbalizing thoughts and language production. So essentially, putting feelings into words can activate this part of the prefrontal cortex, which can in turn suppress the area of the brain that produces emotional distress. Translation: verbalizing your emotional pain can suppress the areas of the brain that produce emotional pain. Simply put, we share more, we suffer less. But our issue with sharing is that it's probably never, many of us, if not most of us, if not almost all of us, have never been shown how to do it in a way where we can give and receive acceptance and curiosity and fascination. If we can do that with each other, then we become each other's healers. Then we become each other's best friends and each other's therapists. And you don't need me and you don't need anybody else. You can rely on yourselves and on each other. And that's where we're going. We're learning the common language. That's my son's shower alarm. Pardon me turning that on. Or off, I mean. So next session, I'm going to tell you about this powerful exercise that's going to allow you to know how close you're feeling to your partner and how close your partner's feeling to you, and to do something to change it if you want more closeness. That's next week. I'm calling these sessions, these practice makes progress areas, exercises, because that's what it is. It's exercising the muscles of truth and awareness, and when you exercise them, you become proficient at them. Just like any discipline, practice makes progress, exercise makes muscles. I like this thing now they're doing TLDR, too long didn't read. Here's my TLDR. You ready? Emotions exist. We're meant not to avoid, suppress, and resist or deny our emotions, but to experience them. Experiencing your emotions and learning to share them and listen to them and your thoughts can heal your relationship, and it can heal you. Here's the practice makes progress work. It's low-hanging fruit. You're getting set for next session. I asked you to choose a truth partner. If you haven't done that, find one. No, here's what I'd like you to do at this point. If you haven't found a truth partner, someone you believe you can tell the truth with, never not, and they will accept you and accept your truth. If you don't have one like that, practice with yourself, because the most important relationship is with yourself. It's the foundation of all relationships. So here's the exercise. The practice makes progress exercise. It's called Emotional Weather Report. Some of you who've been with me for a while know this exercise. No one knows the one I'm going to be showing. Well, I won't get into it. The one next week is going to be set up. I said next week, next session is going to be set up by 2 weeks of practicing this one. Okay? I want you to practice getting out of the paradigm of good and bad into the rich tapestry of it is what it is, which is instead of how are you, I want you to translate when you get how are you into what's life like for you at this moment? What's it like to be you at this moment? That, answering that question, is an emotional weather report. And why do I call it that? Because lots of times when someone says, how are you? And you respond, they will tell you how to fix how you are. These are emotional weather reports because no one tries to fix the weather. They might tell you to carry an umbrella if they know it's raining. If you say it's raining, okay, well, have your umbrella. That's it. That's it. No one tries to fix it because you can't. You can't fix the weather. And the reality is you can't fix someone's emotional weather report. Trying to fix it creates tension in the other person, which locks the experience in place. Exactly the opposite of probably what you don't want, which is, okay, I hope it passes as soon as it passes. So, anytime you have the opportunity to say, how are you? Between this session and next, as often as you can, but minimum 3 times. Minimum 3 times between this session and next. You have the opportunity to say, how are you? Instead, you say, what's it like to be you right now? What's life like for you right now? You can say today if right now is too intense for you. But really what you want to know is in this exact moment, what's it like to be you? And when someone asks, how are you? You can say, I'm translating that into blah, blah, blah. Or you can just answer the question. What's life like? What's your inner world right now? And if you're not sure, because all you can identify with is tense or not, or maybe you can't even go there. If you're not sure, say, I'm not sure. And suddenly that's the truth. Because the truth is the truth. If you feel confused, say, I feel confused. And that's the truth. If you feel resistant to do, I have to do this exercise that in my mind I have a voice telling me is stupid. Fine. Then that's the truth. That's the emotional weather report. Minimum of 3 times. As often as you can. is what I challenge you with, but a minimum of 3. And to set you up for next session, this is the last thing. To set you up for next session, because I'm going to blow your mind and bring you back to your senses in your relationship. Contemplate this. Pretend it's okay to be selfish, okay? Pretend it's okay to be selfish. Look at the challenges in your current relationship or the challenges you've had in past relationships, pretending that it's okay to be selfish. And if you're your own truth partner, look at the challenges you've had in the relationship with yourself. Or you can look in other relationships and just tell them to yourself. That's okay too. Here it is. What might be your selfish motivations in those challenging areas? Again, in those challenging areas of relationship, what might be your selfish motivations? We're going to get into this next week, and we're going to end it with an exercise. What might be your selfish motivations behind the actions you take, behind the actions you don't take, your non-actions? What might be your selfish motivations behind the words you say or you don't say? Okay? Bring those answers next session, the answers to this second exercise, you'll see, to yourself. Keep them to yourself, but bring them to the next session, all right? Don't share them with anyone except your truth partner if you want to, but even that person, I would say it'd be more advisable to bring it to this next session. Let me close it with this. I describe this as a game of extreme intimacy. It's only extreme to the degree that you're committed to the truth. This emotional weather report is a truth exercise. So you're building up the muscles of being able to tell the truth in every moment. Next week, I'm going to throw you into deeper water with a truth exercise. It's the extreme intimacy. The extreme intimacy is about to begin. So practice this week, exercise this week. I keep saying this week. It's going to be 2 weeks. Practice this session between now and then so you can get the most out of next session, so you can build that muscle, so you can express what it's like to be alive in your human body and listen to other people when they put their human journey into words. Understanding yourself and your truth and being able to understand your partner's truth can make your relationships fun, interesting, engaging for a lifetime in the same exhilarating way that they are when relationships first start. So until next session, I wish you truth. Thanks for coming.